about the recording. So the recording goes out to everybody who registers. A lot of people register from other time zones, can't make it, all the rest of it. So they will just join us from the recording, but you'll all get the recording as well later today or tomorrow. So what our great, marvelous start to our Saturday monthly spirit-based gatherings for 2025 is this gathering we're going to do to talk about Edgar Cayce. So I'm really excited about this. Edgar Cayce, for those of you who have read my book, Till Death Don't Us Part, was a very early influence and inspirer of mine after my partner died. I was actually in Virginia at the time. So I ended up finding my way into the a.r.e. in Virginia Beach, which was absolutely a marvelous experience. So Edgar Cayce has always been very near and dear to my heart, and in my mysticism class, he's one of the mystics that I teach as well. So what I wanted to do was sort of I'm going to be doing a 6-week course in Edgar Cayce Trance Healing, which I love. But what I wanted to do this morning was just give all of you sort of a basic intro to Edgar Cayce, introduce you to Kevin, Cayce scholar par excellence, I might add. And I'm delighted, Kevin. It's such a treat to have Kevin with us here this morning. And so what I want to do is just talk to you a little bit about Cayce, really hand over to Kevin. Kevin's going to talk for about 20 minutes or so on Cayce's work, on Kevin's work. And before I forget, there's a couple of books. Is that backwards or can you read that?
Well, we can see it.
Yep. So that's Kevin's and Henry Reid, who was one of the first. I actually learned remote viewing. One of the first people I studied remote viewing with was Henry Reid. Contemporary Cayce by Kevin and Henry Reid. And then the book that is required reading for my trance class is on my Kindle. It's, oops, God, it keeps disappearing. Kevin, do you have your cover there handy?
I have it on my background if I can share. Let's see.
So that's 12 lessons, keeps going to author's note. It's insisting we skip the cover and read what Kevin said in the author's note. So that's 12 lessons in personal response. Yeah. So really, it's a beautiful. The reason I love this book is that Cayce can be very difficult. His language is quite archaic. Sometimes it can be quite difficult to follow. And what Kevin has done in personal spirituality has Edgar Cayce's 12 Lessons in Spirituality, just grab it there real quick, has actually taken Cayce's teachings and made them very, very accessible. And so what we do when I'm teaching Cayce now is I incorporate those teachings into the class so that we're not only learning the trance states, we're actually learning some really, really inspired and beautiful teachings. I love the Cayce ideals in particular. That chapter on the Cayce ideals, Kevin, is one of my favorites. I love it. And so I've had people who've had the most extraordinary experience going in search of their Cayce ideal. But I'm going to hand over to Kevin in a moment just to talk about his work on Cayce. What we'll do after that is we'll have about 15 minutes for questions and answers. We got in the registration, I have over 400 questions. So we're just going to sort of answer sort of more general, obviously we can't do 400 questions. We're just going to answer more general questions on Cayce and Cayce's work and on trance healing. And what we'll do is we'll have a short Q&A on that. And then we're going to finish up with a small, short, sort of 10-15 minute trance practice to get you all perked up, spruced up, and healed and squeaky clean for the weekend. So with that, yeah, and I have a couple of things I have to remember. I always forget. I always get into trouble for this. We have a special offer as well, which I need to talk to you about at the end. And also, when I close the meeting, there's a survey. If any of you have a minute just to stay and finish the survey, that would be marvelous. I always forget to say that. And then every month I get these emails saying, you didn't get any survey answers. So I'm saying it now in case I forget. All right, so beautiful. So good morning, everyone. And Joe's just joined us from Connecticut. For those of you who have just joined us, people were just popping in the chat there, good morning and where they're from, if you'd like to add to that, if you've just come in. And in the meantime, I am going to turn off my microphone and introduce you to Kevin Todeschi. So Kevin, as I said, incredibly insightful Cayce scholar. He's a former CEO of the Edgar Cayce Area for Research and Enlightenment in Virginia Beach, which is a marvelous place. I must say, if any of you are in the neighborhood, go by there and check it out. It's just really beautiful and amazing energy there. And he has written many, many books, two of which I have shown you already. And before we finish up, I'll pop some links into the chat so you can check out Kevin's website and any other work that Kevin's been doing. All right, so marvelous. So good morning, Kevin, over to you.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks for having me. I was thinking earlier this week that this June will be 50 years since I got involved with the Cayce material. So I thought I'd start with that story and then launch into some of the things that have really been helpful to me and what Cayce was all about. But as Karen said, Cayce's the most documented psychic of all time. He lived between 1877 and 1945. And when I was 17 years old, I was recommended by a high school teacher to go to what's called boys' state. I don't know, there's also a girls' state, but basically what it is you go to college for a week during the summer and you learn all about the government, the judiciary, the executive branch, how Congress operates. And basically, it's for people who might be interested in working for the government or civil service or whatever. And although part of it was interesting, by Wednesday of the week, I was bored out of my mind, to tell you the truth. So I went down to the student bookstore, and the book that jumped out at me was a book called A Prophet in His Country, The Story of the Young Edgar Cayce by Jess Stern. And that book had just come out that year. And I got that book and I actually read it over the next 3 days. And when my father and mother came and picked me up on Friday, and I am not making this up, I said, I'm supposed to move to Virginia Beach, Virginia, and I'm supposed to be president of a.r.e. And that caused my parents to be somewhat concerned because they were very conservative Catholics. But that launched a search for me that I read every Cayce book I could find at the time. There were a lot of Warner paperbacks back then. I read them all. When I finally graduated from college and got to Virginia Beach, all my work experience was accounting, so they hired me in the accounting department. But I knew more about Edgar Cayce than many of the people who worked there. And eventually I became CEO. I worked in or managed every department over for the next 25 years. And then 25 years into it, the board hired an outside search firm to find our next CEO when Charles Thomas retired. And the search firm actually picked me. And so I was CEO for just over 15 years. My career there was 39 years. And over the years, I've spoken on 6 continents. I've written about 30 books. And the Cayce material to this day remains the most transformative material that I have ever come across. And just to start out, one of the Cayce's most frequently talked about subjects was health and healing, and how each and every one of us has a much bigger involvement in our health and our well-being than we perhaps even imagine. There was a doctor who worked with Cayce named Harold J. Riley that coined the word CARE, C-A-R-E, to stand for what we can do is work with our circulation, for C. And that involves exercise, that involves, making sure that your blood's going good. Every morning, at least 5 days a week, I try to run on my elliptical to help with my circulation. The next one is assimilation, which is really the foods we take into our body. Whatever we take in really has a very strong component to how well we're doing. So assimilation became very important to me. Relaxation, whether we're talking about, not being worried so often, learning how to meditate, taking time to relax, getting a massage. There's a number of things we can do for relaxation and make sure we have great elimination. So that's really the overview of health. But for me particularly, when I was in junior high school, I was always carrying around Kleenex in my pocket. I had like 5 or 6 Kleenex with me at all times because my nose was running constantly. And eventually my mother took me to an allergist who told her after a number of tests over several periods that I was allergic to every tree, bush, and shrub that grew in the state of Colorado, which is where I grew up. And so I started getting allergy shots, and I would get allergy shots twice a week, 3 times at a sitting. And that was going all the way up through college. And eventually, because of my interest in Cayce, I looked up Cayce's information on allergies. And one of his strongest suggestions was you need to alkaline your body. And a product he recommended is still on the market. It was put on the market in 1894. It's called glycothymoline, Glycothymoline. And although it says mouthwash and gargle on the bottle, Cayce said it was an instant alkaliner. So I started taking a tablespoon of glycothymoline in a half a glass of water every day. And within 3 weeks, I didn't require allergy shots. And in fact, I told my one of my professors at school who used to get shots during class, her allergies were so severe, I wrote it down for her. And she told the class that for the first time in her life, she had 95% relief from allergies. And I've told people over and over again, you can get it at Amazon for $15 and you can really have an impact upon your allergies. So it's simple stuff like that that Cayce suggested each and every one of us can do. And if you go to edgarcayce.org and type in on their search engine holistic health database, 400 illnesses come up, from baldness to constipation to cancer, everything that Cayce gave recommendations you can do for your own health. So I would say health, we have the capacity to improve our health, really proved to be something that was helpful for me. Another thing he talked about frequently was that life is a continuous experience, that we're not just a physical body. In fact, we're not a physical body. We are a spiritual being driving around a physical body. Right now, I'm driving a 1958 Kevin Todeschi, but there's much more to us than a physical body. And that first experience I had with that was right after I started trying to meditate. And I would say I was probably 17 at the time. And I had just tried to meditate, wasn't very good at it. And I went to sleep and I was awakened in the middle of the night by a really loud woman's voice who said, almost like she was yelling, "I'm dead." And I jumped out of bed startled because it scared me. And my parents' room was right next door. And I yelled, "What?" And my mother ran in the room and she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Some lady just told me she was dead." Well, that was one of the whole list of things that my parents started worrying about, that our son is losing his mind. So when I went to school that day, unbeknownst to me, she told me later, she went to our church and got some holy water and sprinkled it all over my bed. But the thing that amazed me is that night we're all sitting around the dinner table. This is before answering machines. And the phone rang, which irritated my father, I remember. And he went to the phone and answered it. And a neighbor was calling to tell him that unexpectedly, in the middle of the night, his wife had died. And the reason he was calling was because his wife was a friend of my mom's and they used to play bridge together as partners. So he was calling to let us know. And my father talked to him for a minute and then hung up the phone. And I wanted to talk about it because I thought this lady died and she came to tell my mom and I heard it. My parents did not want to talk about it. But that's another thing in the Cayce information, that life's a continuous experience. And he used to have many, many experiences of speaking to deceased people. He'd be giving a lecture and there might only be 40 or 50 people there. And he'd tell some of his office staff that there were actually 70 or 80 there because dead people would come to hear his lecture. The deceased are interested in what's going on. And because of that, when I was going through college and I would read from whether it was a Search for God books or the Course in Miracles or whatever I might be reading, sometimes I'd say a prayer of protection and I'd read the book aloud in case any dead people wanted to hear it. So there's another list on my parents. Oh my God, our son's losing his mind. Another one is Cayce said we're wired for personal guidance. And that comes to us in the form of dreams, intuition, synchronicity, all kinds of things. And when I first got involved, probably the most life-changing dream I ever had was when I first got involved in a study group. And Cayce gave readings on about 900 different dreams. And he was really one of the first people to suggest that dreams have a fantastic use for our own personal guidance. Part of the reason, this is science, not Edgar Cayce, but part of the reason is because science has proven that 95% of the stimulus coming to us is filtered out by the conscious mind. Now that might sound high, but you don't feel your bottom on the chair. You don't feel the intensity of the light or hear your sound of the air conditioning system or hear somebody else in your house unless I point it out because your mind is deciding irrelevant and the conscious mind ignores it. But all that information goes into your subconscious mind. So when we sleep, what happens is all that information comes to the forefront. and can give us all kinds of guidance. And it's actually that's the process that happens. For example, if you're at a crime scene and you're hypnotized and you remember more under hypnosis than you're aware of consciously, because it's all in our subconscious mind. Well, with Cayce really focusing on the importance of people working with dreams, this was my first experience. I was in the study group and I was the youngest person in the group. I was probably at the time 19, and everyone in the group seemed really old to me. They were like 45 to 75. And I was always worried that I was not catching up as fast as I should. But I was trying, I was doing all our practices, and we'd have different lessons, disciplines to try for a week. And I'll tell you one or two in a minute. But uh, the group decided every 6 months they had this experience they did as a group where they would dream on the same question together. And the idea was we all write out a question that we've decided upon, and we're going to read it every night before we go to bed. And then we're going to try to have a dream, and we're going to come back and share it with the group and see if it gives us guidance. I never tried that before. I didn't even know if I could remember a dream, but the group decided to dream on the question, what do I need to work on spiritually? And I thought it was a pretty good question. So we wrote down the question, and that first night I remember reading my question over and over again, and the next morning waking up and remembering absolutely nothing. And I was really scared. I thought, we're going to be in this group next week, and I'm going to be the only one without a dream, and I'm going to look really stupid. So that next night I wrote it out over and over and over again, and I tucked it up into a little square, and then I put it in my undershort so I'd have it with me all night. And this is the dream I had. I dreamed I was in Egypt, and I had never been in Egypt. Having been at a.r.e. for nearly 40 years, I've actually been on 6 tours to Egypt, but at the time I had never been to Egypt. But in the dream, I'm on an Egypt tour with an a.r.e. group, and there's about 50 people on this tour. And I'm coming out of the entrance to the Great Pyramid, which is up a little way. And just as I step out of the entrance, someone on this tour yelled really loud for everyone to hear, by the way, Jesus taught Kevin some dance steps, and Kevin wants to show them to you now. And I was, kind of shocked because number one, I didn't know anything about dancing. And number two, I didn't ever remember meeting Jesus. But all these people start gathering around to watch my performance. And I think, well, maybe I can come up with something. And as they're sitting down, somebody I didn't really like in a.r.e., someone who kind of I thought was irritating, sat down, excuse the language. And in my mind, I thought, what an ass as this person sat down. And as I thought that, I looked out over the Giza Plateau, and Jesus was standing there. And he thought back what I had just thought. And the next thought was, more than anything else, you need to work on your thoughts. And I was blown away. I woke up, I was blown away. I had written out, what do I need to work on spiritually? And the next thing was work on your thoughts. Well, I started working with my dreams all the time. In fact, I eventually found out I'm actually pretty good at dream interpretation. And then I had a past life experience of having been a dream interpreter in ancient Persia. And I knew it was a past life because I have literally interpreted probably 10,000 or more dreams, and no one has given me a nickel. But in this experience, I was doing a dream and someone paid me. It used to be a paying job. Now it's just like, for fun. But anyway, so in terms of disciplines, Cayce recommended that all of us try to come up with something we can do to become a better person or to help other people as often as possible. In fact, he recommended on a number of occasions to every morning when you wake up to pray, God, what would you have me do today? And then listen. And part of the reason is, how do you think God in spirit impacts things physical? And the answer really is through us. I mean, we're the tools for bringing divinity into the earth. And it's only to the extent of our willingness that manifests. And one of the somewhat humorous and yet really meaningful stories to me is one day, this is the story that comes to mind. One day I was saying that prayer, God, what would you have me do today? And it was during Christmas week. And I got the feeling strongly that I was needed to help someone financially. Well, here in Virginia Beach, there's a number of places like at the 7-Eleven where I sometimes went for coffee, or the turnoff of the interstate where you get off the interstate onto one of the side roads. There's people with signs, looking for money. And so I got the feeling I was supposed to help someone financially. So to save time and energy, I took $20 out of my wallet and I put it in my pocket. And I thought, okay, when I see this person, I'll just give him money, and then that's great. So I went to work and took the interstate, and I didn't see anybody with a sign. And I went to 7-Eleven for coffee, and there was no one sitting there like there usually was. So I went into work and I did my job. And then at lunchtime, I wanted to go to the bank because we have a tradition. My wife and son and I, we go to this pretty expensive Italian restaurant on Christmas Eve. It's like a tradition. And we only go then because it's kind of pricey. So I went to the bank to write a check for $200. And I'm standing in line to get my check. And two tellers over, this young guy walks in to the teller and she says to the guy, "How are you doing today?" And he says, "I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I can't pay my rent this week." And I heard that and I thought, God, if this, and I thought in my head, God, if this is the person you want me to help, I need a clear sign here. Is this who I'm supposed to help? And the woman gave me my $200 in the envelope. And I turned to go and he turned right at me and he said, "I don't know what I'm supposed to do this week. I can't pay my rent." And I followed him out to the parking lot and I gave him my envelope and I said, "I think this is for you." So the point is that whenever we ask to be used by someone else, God will show us the way. God will help us to do what we're supposed to be doing. Uh, Another thing Cayce talked about is the importance of healing all of our relationship problems. That to the best of our ability, we need to have healing. We need to have healing in our relationships. And I just gave a talk on relationships. And one of the stories I told was before I moved to Virginia Beach, I had a fiance. And she and I were engaged for about 6 months. And we had a big fight. And I don't really remember what the fight was about. I remember some of the yelling, but I don't remember what it was about. And we didn't speak for the next 6 months. And then I moved to Virginia Beach. And I never heard from her again. And I was at a.r.e. in Virginia Beach, Virginia, reading books about, healing relationships and attitudes and emotions and all that kinds of things. But I was there for about a year and a half, and all at once I started dreaming about her. And part of me knew that I would just see her working and stuff. And part of me knew the dreams were an impetus to try to heal it. But I felt so embarrassed about how we had broke up, and I didn't know if she'd wanted to hear from me. And so I couldn't think of what else to do, but I started praying for her. And what I did is every morning when I wake up, I'd imagine her face and I try to surround it with divine light. And when I go to bed, I do the same thing. And I did this for about a week. And at the time I was working in the customer service department and the phone rang and I picked it up and the voice said, "Hi, Kevin, it's me." And it was her. And she says, "I have a problem and you're the only person in the world I can think of who can help me." And she worked for the airline. She was a computer geek and helped do the reservation system so she could fly for free. So she flew to Virginia Beach and she talked to me about a problem and I went through my thought processes of how I might tackle it. And in the process, we healed our relationship. We did not get back together. We probably shouldn't have been together, but we healed the relationship so much so that, over the next 30 years when I go speaking, if ever on several occasions when I went to Colorado to speak, she'd pick me up at the airport. And I just heard from her from email not too long ago. So I think it's important to heal all of our relationships. And that's one of the things Cayce talked about. He also talked about, reincarnation is real. And we are a archaeological dig of memories and patterns and potentials and experiences. And certainly my experience with the dream thing was one thing, but when my son had this experience, uh, it really brought home to me. When my son was about 1 year old, my wife and I put him to bed about maybe 8 o'clock at night, and then we go downstairs and sit at the kitchen. And on about it, he had a crib that the bars were probably 3.5 feet tall. So when he stood up, his little head was like right to here on the bars. About a dozen times we'd be down in the kitchen and we'd hear this slam and a baby would start screaming. And he had pulled himself over the bars and thrown himself to the floor. And we'd run upstairs. And the last time I said, he's going to hurt himself. We got to do something. And my wife is a professional psychic. And she said, "Well, let me tune in and see what's going on." And so I took him out of the room and she came later about 20 minutes and she says, "I'm picking up on a past life in France." And he was out in his field and he was arrested for something he did not do. And the sheriff came in one of those cages that you've probably seen in movies where there are bars on all sides, open up, drawn by a horse. And when he's waking up in the crib, he's seeing that cage thinking, "I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here." And he's throwing himself out of the bed. I said, "Well, make it into a day bed." So I took all the bars off, He never threw himself out again, which was interesting. But the more interesting part happened when he went to kindergarten, and we're there for the orientation. And the teacher explains that if you're good during the day, they're going to keep your little car on the track. But if you miss, she's going to put it in the shop. Well, I turned to my wife and I said, who would care? And she told me to be quiet. But my son walking out to the car, he was horrified, almost to the point of tears. He kept saying, what if someone does something and I get blamed for it? What if someone does something I get blamed? And we had never told him about the experience. And so to me, that just brings all of it home. So if people ask me in an elevator, what's the most important part about the Edgar Cayce material? I tell them that life is a purposeful experience, that we're here for a reason. And part of that reason is for us to work on our own healing and become better people. It's also about helping God, being employed for God. When I was CEO, I used to tell the staff there on most staff meetings, we are employees for God. And I wasn't just talking about a.r.e. people. Everybody in the earth is an employee for God. But most of us don't know that we were hired for the job. And even those of us that know are only working part-time. But all of us are here to somehow bring divinity in the earth. Secondly, we are all connected by the oneness of God, the oneness of God. Now, when Cayce first talked about that, when I read it, I thought, we're all supposed to learn about oneness. But really what he means is, in all the universe, there's only God. Nothing exists but God. And we're all connected to that. And that somehow we need to come to terms with the fact that we're supposed to do things to help God and help transform the world. So I don't know, Karen, if you're ready for me to be quiet and answer questions, but there's just a quick overview of some of my experiences with Cayce and how the last 50 years have truly been an amazing adventure.
Absolutely amazing stories. Thank you very much for sharing them. So this is the sort of stuff we don't get when we read his work, but I've had some extraordinary experiences myself when I came to upon Edgar Cayce. I won't spend too long talking about them. I did talk about them. I wrote about them extensively in my book, Till Death Don't Us Part. But Cayce, when my fiance passed, I was actually researching my first book over in the Chesapeake Bay area. And for those, I won't go into the whole thing, for those of you who've read it who know this story, one thing led to another, and I found myself crossing that Chesapeake Bay Bridge and going into the a.r.e, and they have little treatment centers there, and I met, a whole bunch of really interesting people. It was very new for me because I had been a war correspondent up until that point. So, but had then after that just sort of really was mind-blowing experiences of interacting with our dearly departed in all sorts of ways, shapes and forms. So really, really extraordinary. So I do encourage everybody to check out the 12 Lessons in Personal Spirituality, that Kevin's book. It's a very, very accessible book on Cayce. And then, of course, also the contemporary Cayce, complete exploration using today's philosophy and science as well. As I said, Cayce work, I always find Cayce quite, it's like reading the Bible sometimes, reading Cayce, because his language is so archaic. But Kevin's done a marvelous job of actually making his work very accessible. So I do recommend, and I'll pop a bunch of links into the email that we send out with this recording later. And I'll pop a few into the chat as well before we go if you want to learn more. So what I'd like to do is, because we do want to do a practice, a couple of things I want to just say about my particular interest in Cayce is, Cayce was also known as the sleeping prophet. And so he would go into these sleep states, which now we call, I think dream states, altered states, basically, whether that be a dream state or an altered state. The altered states we all go into for all trance work, for all mediumship work, all work like this. And he would go into these really, really deep states, and people would send him, and if I've got any of this wrong, Kevin, you can correct me, people would send him letters, particularly through the war years, asking for healing and for different remedies. And he would go into his sleep state or his altered state, and he would come up with these remedies that then his assistant would write down. They would mail them off. So there's about 10,000, I believe, of these remedies at the a.r.e. in Virginia Beach in the library there. Big old dusty things, amazing, really, for a total library book nerd like me. It was just bliss. And so these things really, really interest me. So what particularly interests me with my work with Cayce now is actually bringing the sort of the trance mediumship, the healing, the inspiration, the wisdom into practices that we can all sort of learn. Edgar Cayce obviously was exceptional, so I'm not I wouldn't expect any of you just to pop off into a trance state and come up with unified field theory equations or anything like that. But it can be immensely powerful altered state of being, both for your own healing, for the healing of others, and just as we know, hurt people hurt. The more we can heal ourselves in these states, the more, as Kevin was saying, along those lines of living that purposeful life, how can we then, from our inner state of inner healing, then present ourselves and meet the world from that space and do something purposeful to contribute to the well-being of all. So to me, I love to be able to take those aspects of Cayce's teachings and bring them into teaching people how to achieve and move into those trance states and deepen those trance states specifically for healing and wisdom. So that's what I love about it. I would love one day to be able to just go into a sleep and have written 10,000 solutions to the world's problems, but we'll have to wait for another Cayce incarnation perhaps for that. So I just want to, because there's so many people in the room, if anyone's any questions, would you just pop them into the chat so that we can we'll probably group them under, with like the 400 questions I got, we'll group them. So Patricia's asking, Kevin, you can answer if you like, is energy healing through working with healing guides, or do we connect them to them first? I will say in my teachings, we do invite a healing team in, but it's not something to get hung up on. Like, we don't try to see them or draw them or know them or name them or anything. It's the power, the healing power of these guides who are very advanced beings who will help us to basically access and draw on the healing power that we need to share with other people. But Kevin, do you want to add anything to that in terms of Cayce?
Sure. I would say Healing Cayce, who is Edgar Cayce's eldest son, used to tell this story that I think has remained with me ever since. He said, ultimately, we're all healers or harmers. And just walking through a hallway with our thoughts, we are either healing or harming everyone with whom we come in contact. So we have this vibrational energy. I wrote a book called Edgar Cayce on Vibrations that we're constantly putting out. And that energy changes the room. So like, for example, if you walk into a post office, even if it's empty, that feels very different than if you walk into a church or synagogue. And it's because of the activity that's gone on in the room, that thought has energized it. And we do the same thing just walking by someone. So we're all healers or harmers, even if we don't know it.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why, the heal thyself has become so important, right? Because what we actually are carrying is what we're also projecting. So this is where moving into these very, very deep states of healing for the self, starting with that, becomes so important. If anyone's any more questions, if you want to pop them in the chat there while we have Kevin's expertise, please do. While we're waiting for some questions to pop in, I'll just share my screen really quickly to show you where you can find most of you know this, in our free community here. Let me move these windows out of the way. In our free community, which if you go to my website, you can either set up a free account if you haven't got one already. In the Spirit Space community, there is actually a recommended reading list that I have here, and under Mystics and Mediums, Mystics, you can find Cayce's 12 lessons in personal spirituality and the contemporary Cayce. So they'll link you off into Amazon to check out those books. So if you would like to do that, please definitely do recommend. And anything else that Kevin has written, of course, please do share that. Victoria's asking, sorry, I skipped ahead. Margaret is asking, are there several types of healing? The question confuses me. This is therefore not a personal healing. Margaret, I will say healing is healing. Healing manifests in different ways. People will use Reiki to heal. People will use trance to heal. People will use spiritual healing. People use bowls to heal. Actually, an interesting thing about Cayce is, I do believe, Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that Cayce had actually predicted that a substantial amount of healing would occur through sound moving into the future, which I think is
healing.
Fascinating, because we're actually discovering that now of late, that we're discovering that sound and sound vibrations actually can bring a lot of healing to us. So, Margaret, I wouldn't get too caught up on what's Reiki versus this versus healing versus trance versus whatever. Healing is just healing. it comes under different names. Some people just respond better. Some people respond very well to working in trance and altered states for healing. Some people respond very well to sound healing, to bowl. Some people respond very well to Reiki healing. Different forms of expressing healing work better for different people depending on your own disposition. But at the end of the day, healing is just healing. So we heal ourselves, we heal, and we've got to remember we are all inherently interconnected as well. So to heal ourselves is to heal others, so, and it comes back to this sort of purposeful living that Kevin was talking about. It starts with us. Once we step into the healing stream, once we step into the healing intention, there really is no difference. I know some of you have done trance healing practices with me before. We find like we sit for healing for ourselves and we can feel a certain amount of power in that healing. And then we sit to extend that healing and to send that healing, or that prayer, as Kevin was saying, to pray for other people, which is a beautiful thing to do as well. We sit to send that healing to others. This metta practice is a Buddhist practice, is a beautiful practice that really kind of dovetails with this idea as well. And then we can sort of send healing to the entire planet. And what people I find, when everybody's find when they do these practices, is that we kind of think in terms of finite possibility because of the human condition. So we think, if I've got this much healing energy, I want it all for myself. I've got this much healing energy, I want it all for my dog or my son or whoever, or my mother. What we actually find is that when we open up to receive healing to flow through us, when we expand where we want it to flow, so if we expand that intention to send healing to the entire planet, to the plants, to the animals, the soil, to all the people on it, the power we experience in that opening just grows exponentially. So there is no limit to the healing that is available to us when we learn how to move into the states to be able to receive and share it. And as I said, in whatever form or whatever expression that takes, it doesn't really matter. What matters really is the healing intention. So I hope that answers your question, Margaret. Oh my God, I've got loads of questions. We'll get to as many as we can. Let me see. Joseph, very drawn to working with sound healing. Yeah, I love this. Do you want to say, do you want to add anything to Cayce's prediction of sound actually healing? Because a few people asked about that.
I think it ties into vibration. The various sounds. We have a woman that comes to the area often, does Tibetan bowls with a rod, and the energy that comes off the bowls puts off a vibration that can help do healing. So I think all healing is connected to vibration somehow, whether it's spiritual healing or Reiki or sound healing. I mean, sometimes death is a healing. Somebody has a question about how to help someone dying. And, I think we can't question what kind of healing happens. If we're open to it, healing will come, but we can't decide what that healing means. There's all kinds of, there's healing for as many different people as there are out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And sort of on a related note, Jen asked if you can offer insights on healing for people at end of life. I can say from my own experience, and I'll just share this very quickly first and turn it over to Kevin, is that I have noticed, I can only speak for this from my own experience really, that quite often what happens, and I'm sure as a doula, you're very experienced in this, but often what happens is that when people are at the end of life, we really sit for healing and prayer and everything else to cure them, because we want to heal their physicality. We want them to be better and to stay with us. Whereas quite often the healing is just in allowing them a peaceful transition and in holding the space for them to transition. So an anecdotal story very quickly was when my mother had cancer in Ireland. I flew home and I was sitting and I was doing healing with her all the time, and just every day we're doing healing because my mother, and I was determined to get rid of this cancer and to make my mother better. It's my mother, right? Because now what we've got in there is not healing, attachment. We've got attachment, right? And so I'm doing all of this work and setting all these intentions that because I think I've got some supernatural power, I can just sort of wave my hands. My mother's cancer, stage 4 cancer, is going to go away. And what I found was that the more I was doing this, the more uncomfortable she was getting. you know. And eventually I came to the point of acceptance that I needed the healing to be for her highest good and well-being, whatever form that was going to take. And from that point on, it was just surrendering and turning it over for her highest good and well-being, not what I wanted, but what she needed. And that was very important. And what started happening after that was, as we sat for healing, she started getting she started being able to sleep, which she hadn't been able to do. And the closer she got to her transition, the more she started becoming aware of the healing team. So at one point, she felt I was sitting up at her head. She was in the bed. I was sitting up at her head, and she thought somebody had their hands on her feet. So she could feel these little other hands on her as she started to sort of slip between that space. To recognize that there was another thing. And the closer she got to passing, the more she started seeing them people around her, which I know a lot of you have probably experienced this. But a lot of that came from moving in, for me, having to move into a place of being able to do the healing for what she needed, not what I wanted. And I think that's something we really have to surrender to when we're working with people who are dying. A lot of the time, people who are dying, they're sick of being sick, you know. What they really need is comfort and peace and that sort of easy transition. And if we can help them start to see the gathering, even that's coming to collect them, the loved ones that come to, because we know there's always gathering, sometimes that's the healing that they need. So I think a key part of healing people who are working with healing with the dying is that act of surrender to their need, you know, to whatever the power, the healing guides of God, whatever that power is that you want to call it, knows is in their best interest. We've got tons of questions here, so we won't be able to get to them all. Let me see if I can. I'm trying to pick ones that are sort of general. So Victoria, this is beautiful. From this meeting, I'll remember to bless what I give others. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that lovely? That's really nice, Victoria. Thanks for sharing that. To bless what you give others. So yeah, that's really, really nice. I was watching somebody talking about the Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh yesterday. I was like, you know, in Buddhism, we get this thing where part of one of the Heart Sutra is to sort of save all beings, you know, and which becomes sort of antithetical to Buddhist philosophy. And what Thich Nhat Hanh had said about it was, it's not about sort of, we don't go out with this grandiose plan that we're going to go save all beings. All we need to do is to go out and show kindness, to bring that energy, to bring that kindness, to bring that sort of vibe with us as we move through the world, because that, and as Kevin has said also, that also affects and impacts and generates that ripple of energy that it just makes the healing continue, the healing power continue to spread. Is there anything you wanted to add on that end of life thing, or anything else, Kevin?
Well, I wanted to piggyback with this question about what to do to help people who are dying. I've found on many occasions that when someone's dying, they start to have for lack of a better word, altered consciousness experiences. They'll often see people who are deceased, people they don't know come to visit them. And people are just like you welcome a baby when it comes into the world. People on the other side are welcoming the deceased person when they go to the other side. And one of my favorite quick stories was there's this woman, I wrote a story about her life. She had an amazing life. Her name was Angela Peterson. The book's called The One Woman Century. If you go to KevinTodeschi.com, all my books are there. But I worked with her for 4.5 years in her life. Anything that could happen to a woman in the 20th century happened to her. She was married, she was divorced, she lost a child to cancer, she was in the military, she was overseas, she owned her own company, she started the largest doll museum by a single person in the United States, everything. She was dying, and I used to call her once a week. And she was married to a man named Fred Peterson between 1925 and 1945. They divorced. He died in the 60s. This is 1996. She did not like Fred Peterson. So whenever she talked to me about him, she called him Mr. Peterson. So I'm on the phone with her one day, and I said, "How you doing, Angela?" And she says, "I'm fine. You're never going to believe who was in my room today." I said, "Who was in your room?" She says, "Mr. Peterson. He was at the foot of my bed, just like when you're here. I saw Mr. Peterson." And I figure he's coming to get her. And I said, "Well, Angela, how did you feel about that?" She said, "Well, I thought about it." And I thought, "Well, you were married for 20 years. And she said, "I thought about it. And well, he is the father of your 2 children." And I thought about it. And I thought, well, if they want me to go, there's no way I'm going with Mr. Peterson. They're going to have to send somebody else. So, so she was still upset with him after all those years. But the universe will send someone to help us go on our way.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a funny story. Stephanie, I just want to pick up, you had mentioned, is there anything we can do to help heal the country that we live in? And I've sort of touched on that earlier. When we sit within the trance state, when we sit with the healing intention and we sit to connect into these altered states, to connect with the higher forms, with the higher energy, you know, with the healing team, with the universe, with the source, whatever name you want to call it, when we sit in these altered states to connect into that energy and choose with the intention then to allow it flow through us to and from us to those who need it most, you can just hold. There's no limit. This is what I was saying earlier. There's no limit on the amount of healing that can be shared in that space, and you will actually find that as your intention grows with the healing you want to share, the power intensifies. So you can really just hold all beings in your healing intention. And so I would say, if you really want to bring healing to your country, to the people within your country, just hold them all like that within the intention. There is no limit. It's not like, oh, I've only got a ration of healing, so I'm just going to send it to Joe next door. There is no limit. There is no rationing of healing. Your intention will exponentially expand what's available to heal those around you. So just hold that and just remember that as you're healing. You may, if you heal it, we're going to do a little practice, short practice, and before we finish up. We're running a little late, so I hope everyone can stay for that. But you might experience that. So it's a very, very powerful experience. So we'll see if we can do that. Somebody else said, oh, climate change. Kevin, do you know if Cayce ever said anything about climate change?
It was not a major topic of discussion because basically he responded to what people asked him, but he basically said that where we are now would become more tropical, Virginia Beach, so that it would become hotter, basically is what he's saying, that the temperature would rise where we're at, would be more like Florida. He also talked about, people say that Cayce said California would be the coastline, or that the Great Lakes would empty into the Gulf of Mexico. I'm convinced that he did not say that. There are 14,000 readings. There are 3 that talk about cataclysmic earth changes. Of those 3, none of them are Edgar Cayce. On one occasion, someone says, "Who's giving this information?" And the voice says, "I, Halleliel, have spoken." Halleliel is the archangel of karma. So I'm not sure that earth changes are as big a topic in the readings as people think. I actually wrote a book about it, Edgar Cayce on earth changes. You can get it at Amazon. So
beautiful. Trisha, we have a healing. Yeah, somebody's asking about our Sunday morning. So on Sunday mornings, Joanne Hamilton hosts our spirit space community healing. She alternates. One week she uses my spiritual healing recording, the other week she uses my trance healing recording. So those are free. Kat's just clarified that the healing, Sunday morning healing, lasts from 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the meditations. So anybody who's a member of our Spirit Space community or our Spirit Space Facebook page will get an invite, and that's free. Joanne hosts that for free every Sunday morning for anyone within our community, and it's just for our community, so it's a safe space. It's not sort of random people wandering in with all sorts of things going on. So it's a safe environment. So if any of you want to join that, just pop along, join our community, and join our Facebook group. All the links will lead you there. And we'll put the link for the community in the email that goes out as well. So you're all welcome to join Joanne's healing on Sunday mornings as well. I think we have loads and loads and loads of questions, but we really run out of time for answering questions. But I hope that we've been able to cover most of the sort of general questions. Somebody has popped in the link to the glycosylthymine that you mentioned. So I'll just pop that in again. In case anyone missed it. I just popped it down there as well again, if anyone's interested in that. So that's that. So what I want to do is just mention a little bit about the Trance Healing course and what we'll be covering in that over the next 6 weeks. And then we're going to, and I hope, Kevin, hopefully can you stay for our guided healing? Beautiful.
I'd be happy to. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. So we'll just move into a group sort of altered state healing. Is obviously 15 minutes is not enough time to go into deep trance, but we're going to just move into the altered space for healing for you, others, and all beings. But before we do that, let me just mention the 6-week course. So this is the 6-week course that I have coming up that, sorry, hang on a sec, that Kevin's book, 12 Lessons in Spirituality, is required reading for. It's a really, the book actually makes the big difference because the practices, so what happens in this course, let me just share this again here. What happens as we work through this over the 6 weeks is that we do all of these trance, and I'll put this link to this in the email as well, but we work on learning how to move into the altered states to really access very, very, very deep states of healing. And the reason why I call it trance is because because trance moves us into places where the mind becomes sort of put to the side, so that we can just enter into a very, very deep state of connection. And the deeper our connection, the more we can access that transformative healing power. Like in Cayce's case, he went to sleep, you know, so the deeper we can go into these altered states, the more we can access that healing to have it flow to us, through us, and out to those who need it most. And so if you go to this page, there's quite a lot of information. I tried to give a lot of information here for what we're going to be covering in the course. There's 12 Lessons in Personal Spirituality there. We'll be using every week a different one of the, or 2 of the 12 lessons over the 6 weeks. And so it's, you know, just things to help you, like how we bring in prayer and intention, how we bring in the Cayce ideals, how we find these practices that can help actually enhance our life, our healing, and then how we can both just by embodying that, share that, and have a positive impact on the world around us. And then also by setting healing intention, we can. So there's a big long list here of all the stuff that we're going to cover. So please do pop along and learn that. We also, just as a reminder, we do have our Spirit Space community. We have our Sunday free healing circles for all members there. And we are next month introducing a monthly live practice circle for anybody. This is just for students of the master classes or the live classes. So anything that you are learning, anything at all you want to practice in a live environment, you can come along. I'll be moderating those circles, so you get exclusive invites to that as well. It's just to really help people keep up the practices as they go. So that's that course. So please do, I'll pop that link along. Please do check that out and see if it's something that resonates with you. It's a really powerful course, as I said, greatly enhanced by actually really taking a deep dive into the Cayce teachings and combining, you know, really combining knowledge with practice. And the combination of the knowledge and practice really has had a profound effect and transformative effect on people who have done this training and this with me before. And just for all of you here today, what I've done is I have this 44-minute healing practice that is normally is you have to buy, but I'm going to give it away for anybody who is here today who wants to come and join us on the Cayce course. If you book before, I think it's until tomorrow night, midnight tomorrow. If you book the course before midnight tomorrow, we'll also send you this 44-minute healing practice. And what it is it takes you through the energy healing for the self, and then helps you interpret what you received as you go through the practice. So I think that's normally $99 or something, but anyway, that's free if you're signing up tomorrow. If you sign up by tomorrow, so feel free to pop along and do that. We'll send you that, and don't forget to pop along to the reading resources in the community as well. And there you'll find Kevin's books under the Mystics. All right. So that's that. And then what else have I to say? And then don't forget to do the survey at the end. If you have a few minutes, please, oh God, stop sharing. If you have a few minutes to do that, because I'm always forgetting to say that. So that's it, because we always go into these beautiful sort of spiritual healing practices at the end, and then I completely forget to say everything. So I've said it. Good. No more. I won't be in trouble this week. So Joseph, thank you. So Joseph said, Karen's taken 2 of my other trance courses and they were excellent. Oh, you're joining us for Cayce, Joe. That's marvelous. Great. I'll at least see you there. And Kirsty from Saskatchewan is coming as well. Patricia, the course is not on demand. It's a live course because it actually involves quite a lot of interaction. So there will be recordings if you miss a class. if you want to take the course just from the recordings and do the practices with somebody in spirit space during the week, of course you can do that. It's not going to be on demand, but if you register for the live course, you'll get the recordings. So if you miss one of the classes, or if you can't come to any of them live, you can take them all from the recordings and then find your practice partners in spirit space during the week. The other thing I'm doing this year with live courses is if you miss a class and you have a question on that class, you can email it to me and I will answer it at the beginning of the next class. So you can stay very much still in the interactivity and the feedback for that. And then you can, of course, come to our live practice circles once a month. So just trying to make it, to bring more of a sense of community into all of the courses this week. So it's not just come in, do 6 weeks, go away. You can actually stay within the community of growth and healing as we go. So I hope that is helpful. Well, the recordings normally are, you have access to each recording for 7 days because each lesson builds on the next. So you kind of need to have done the first one before you do the second one. So they're made available for 7 days. So you can do class 1, make sure you've done it before we go into class 2. So that's the way the live classes are at the moment. So I hope that helps, Patricia. Right, everyone good? So let me guess, I won't do all these links now. I'll send out these links in your email. So check out your emails tonight or tomorrow, just in case they might get spammed. But check if by the end of the day today, you will have an email with all the course details, with all the links for all of the stuff that we talked about today, well, Kevin's books, Kevin's work as well, and different things that we've talked about in this session. So I'll pop all of those into the email tonight. If you don't see it, check your spam folder. Gmail in particular is marvelous for putting stuff into folders nobody ever checks. So please do have a little noodle around and you will find it all there, because it is a marvelous course. And like I said, if nothing else, read Kevin's books and come along to our free healing circles. So that will I do feel you'll benefit from that as well. So everyone ready? So it's 1 o'clock. I know, can everyone stay for about 15 minutes because we had so much to cover and so many questions for Kevin as well. I don't know what time the Sunday healing circles are. They're at I think they're at 8 o'clock. And does anyone know what time they are? What time Joanne's doing the 8 a.m. Pacific. 8 a.m. Pacific. All right. Okay, so I'm turning off the chat now, everyone, so don't feel like I'm not deliberately ignoring you. I just can't see any questions because I really just want to now bring us into our practice portion. So if everyone there just can get yourselves settled, we're just going to take a breath and we will just start to move into a light altered state where we can receive healing for ourselves and then share that with others. And then Stephanie, feel free also to expand and extend that to everybody you feel, all circumstances that you feel need healing. All right. So just taking a breath, everyone, just getting very, very comfortable where you are. Probably best not to lie down. You might have a little nap if you do. So if you can sort of sit up, but make sure you're very, very comfortable so that you can just sort of completely relax into the chair, because we are going to be really moving from our physical awareness into our spirit awareness of our spirit. So just taking a breath, taking a couple of breaths there and just bringing your focus to the breath, just the simple act of breathing, to allow yourself, allow everything that fall away, allow yesterday, allow tomorrow, allow lunch to fall away, allow everything to fall away. And just coming into this present moment, just allowing the breath to bring you into this moment and this time. Just focusing on the simple act of breathing and allowing the breath to still the mind and relax the body. And should the mind begin to wander, Just allowing, just recognizing, just acknowledging the thought, turning your focus back to the breath. So as the thought arrives, just releasing that thought by moving your focus very gently from the thought back to the breath. And just very gently now, as we begin to move our awareness to our incarnate spirit, just bringing your focus very gently to the crown of your head, and then doing very gently, just moving your awareness from your crown to your forehead and eyes, your jaw, your shoulders, and any place you find tension. Just take a breath into that space and release it, continuing to allow your awareness move slowly down the body, allowing the tension in the shoulders and arms to release, and allowing your hands and your arms to hang loosely in your lap, allowing your shoulder blades to just sink down your back, allowing your spine and your pelvis to sink into the chair, allowing that chair support your physical form like a big, safe, comfortable hand, allowing your legs and your feet to relax, allowing your feet to sink into the floor as your physical form is steadied here, safe in the hand that holds you. And should the mind wander or get attached to a thought, simply release that thought and bring your focus back to the breath, the simple act of breathing. Now bringing your attention to your heart space. And within the heart space, become aware of a spark of light or a spark of energy. And on the breath, allowing this spark to grow gently, slowly, and steadily. So it begins to fill your upper body, the bright, white, healing light, or the bright, powerful energy of the spirit within. And on each breath, this light grows wider and brighter. So that your entire body is soon sitting and bathing in the light of your spirit. And are now allowing the spirit to expand beyond the physical form. So this light and this power and this energy begins to fill the room around you, allowing all the illusion of physical space to dissolve so that you rest within the light of your spirit, the light that radiates from within as far as you can see, the light of the eternal and infinite spirit, the form from which you came and to which you will return. Stepping out now of the body and moving through this clear, white, bright space. Your natural form. Seeing the body now sitting on the chair as you realize the body sits within the spirit, not the spirit within the physical form. Moving, gliding, flowing through the power of your expansive and eternal spirit, moving farther and farther, floating, gliding upwards, out beyond the illusion of the physical world, into the world of spirit, the world of your natural form. And as you move through this space, noticing an even brighter white light, a light that fills all space and all time, all dimensions. The light of the One, the light of the Source, the Divine, the Brahman, the light of all that is. And allowing the light of your spirit to blend and flow easily and completely, to be one with all that is. Surrender the self, surrender separation, surrender to being one with the One, infinite and eternal. Just aware of how it feels to return here to this space that is home. Surrender and release. Should the mind awaken, simply let the thought go. Turn your awareness back to the space in which you are one. Surrender and release. Opening your heart to receive all of the compassion, love, and the wisdom that is here to be shared with you. Opening your heart to receive. Gently now, becoming aware of a very subtle change in the energy. Don't seek to see or know or name, just awareness. becoming aware of the healing team that is drawing close to you, the power of the healers offering their power, their wisdom, their compassionate intention to share healing with you, for you, to you, and through you, for all who need it most. Open and receive. Surrender and receive. Surrender, surrender, and receive this healing that is being shared with you for your highest good and well-being, wherever it is needed most. Opening the heart in gratitude to receive. Now, bringing into your intention an invitation to receive and to share healing for those you love, anyone who needs healing, just holding in this space the compassionate intention to receive healing and share this healing for them, to flow to them for their highest good and well-being, wherever their incarnate spirit knows it is needed most. Releasing attachment, desire, and outcome, and surrender to the wisdom and the healing power that knows what is needed and where it is needed most. And in gratitude now, we hold and expand our intention to receive and share healing with all beings, allowing the power of that healing to flow to us and through us to all beings, all animals, all plants, to the very earth, allowing healing to flow to all that is. Surrender and receive and allow this healing to flow, stilling the mind, opening the heart, compassionate healing to all beings, all creatures, the entire planet. And just holding this space very gently for a little while. Should the mind wander, just returning your attention to this space, to surrender, and to the flow. Gratitude for the healing that has been shared with you, for you, and for those you love, and for all beings. We thank you. Beginning now to make your way back, bringing your awareness again, physical form in which you temporarily reside. Beginning to make your way back now through the light to your physical form. Beginning to move and settle now back into the body, feeling the weight of your physical form, the weight of gravity, the limits of physicality, as you simply bring your eternal and infinite awareness into this form at this time. Beginning now, as you feel the weight beginning to become aware of the sounds, the smells, the temperature around you. Beginning to move and stretch back into your body like a big suit, fitting on. Taking some deep breaths. Bringing your awareness now back fully to this space. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. All right. Everyone come back. Didn't leave anyone behind. Everyone come back kicking and screaming. Leave me there. I don't want to be in this bag of bones. All right. So just a few minutes. We'll finish up in a few minutes. But how did you all get on with that? Did you get a sense of the difference, sort of the subtle changes in the energy as you move through the healing intentions? Yeah, Eugene nodding. Yeah, yeah. Isn't it wonderful, actually? It's so counterintuitive. We always think in these limited resources, and we realize this is a first-hand experience of limitless abundance. Beautiful feeling, I think. Yeah. Yeah, some beautiful. Oh, Victoria was invited to the circle. Beautiful. Yeah. So, has anyone, if you want to add anything, pop it in the chat. Kevin, if you want to add anything, please do. I would just say everyone's been in an altered state now for 20 minutes, so we'll just keep the sounds low, so it doesn't sound like foghorn in people's ears. People are very sensitive at the moment, so I won't turn on the microphones for that reason. Oh. So Aileen, the Archangel. Aileen, were you from Ireland? Who was somebody from Ireland? Was that Aileen? All right, Kevin, did you want to share anything about that?
I just thought it was a wonderful experience to be with all of you. So across wide spaces of the earth. So thank you.
Yeah, 20 minutes it was, Louise. Yes, it's beautiful. That's also the other reason why it's nice to join Joanne on Sunday morning healing, because the power of the group actually greatly amplifies the feeling of the healing. It feels much more powerful when you're with a group than, for obvious reasons, because there's so much more energy being shared than by yourself. So if you do have an opportunity to sit in a healing circle, I would say do that as well. Oiling from the USA, but your family's Irish. I had a feeling. So Aileen, I think also you asked me if there was scholarship for the trance healing course. For the live classes, there aren't, because I only take 12 students. So they're very short classes, and actually I think more than half of those spaces are gone already. So I don't have them. But there is, if you're interested in just channeling generally, there is a channeling on-demand masterclass, which I think is only $99 or something. So if you wanted to do the masterclasses, you could do that. But the live classes, like I said, they're limited to 12. I know Shift, there was like 150 or something, but for my own private mentoring programs, I only take 12 students because it's the only way I can really properly teach them. So if you don't want to do the healing, if you can't do the trance course, I would say, experiment with trance in the on-demand class. So that might be a helpful place to start as well. So yeah, so Margaret's saying she felt, like Kevin saying, part of the entire group spread out. Where are we spread from? Croatia back to California, I think. So quite half the planet represented here today, which is marvelous. So that's a lot of healing energy that was being shared. So I will, like I said, I'll get this email. We'll get this email with all of these links, all of the things we talked about today out to you in the next couple of hours. So please do check your email, check your spam, check your wherever Gmail decides to spirit off emails. Do check that, and you'll get all of the information there as well. Louise is saying, thank you very much, Kevin. You're a great admirer of your work. So Louise is saying that, great admirer of your work. So me too. And I hope all of you do enjoy reading Kevin's book. And I hope to see you all in either our 6-week focused intensive on Edgar Cayce Trance Healing, or at least in our community and our Sunday circles. That would be marvelous, because God knows the planet needs your healing intention. Right. All right, beautiful. So I'm going to say thank you, everyone, from joining us, and goodbye. And I hope that now you go into floating into your weekend and a nice cloud of peace, compassion, and harmony. Do pay attention to, sometimes, especially if you're new to this sort of work, you might feel very hungry or very tired or very cranky or very loving or very sensitive. It's from being in the altered state. So just listen to your body, listen to what's going on, and be kind to yourself. And then when you're kind to yourself, you can be kind to everybody else. All right, beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, Karen, for
Beautiful
having
weekend.
me. Thank you all.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Kevin. Bye-bye.